Hello everyone, Core here, and today I'm reviewing The Eccentric Family. I haven't experienced a true case of post-anime depression in a while, but this one really hit me. Based on the novel by Tomihiko Morimi, who was also the author for the book which the Tatami Galaxy was adapted from. It's a bizarre 13-episode anime, set in a world where Tengu fly through the skies, shape-shifting Tanuki wander the earth, and humans, as always seems to be the case, don't appear to be aware of it. The story focuses around the Shimogamo family of Tanuki, particularly from that of the carefree third son Yasaburo, who is a past student of the proud Tengu Akamada, whose other student, a human, joined the Friday Fellows, a small cult-like group who have a tradition of making an annual Tanuki hot pot, one of which Yasaburo's father was tragically boiled in. Despite the seeming oddity of it, it's accepted by the Tanuki as just one of the risks of life.
私といえばおよそ大海を知らない井戸の中のカエルであった。
The dialogue is brilliantly written. There are 1,000,001 quotes that could be taken away from the show, which just goes to show how important and unique each line spoken is. I can't say much for the original language, but Crunchyroll did an incredibly good job of subtitling this one. It skirts back and forth between comedy and drama near seamlessly, bringing a well-rounded feel to everything and making both far more effective than they would have been on their own. When it's having an emotional moment, it excels at hitting you right where it needs to, from the visuals to sound for full effect. Don't be misled by the first look, this show will have you tearing up on several occasions. It takes this ridiculous, crazy premise and makes it come alive. Despite its visual style and somewhat misleading name and thumbnail, much like the Tatami Galaxy, it presents itself in a very mature way. Not that it's directly explicit, but through the events and dialogue of the characters, and the way this is displayed, it feels very real and much darker than I would have expected. The story itself does get a tad bit slow about a third of the way in, but it quickly picks up again for a phenomenal conclusion. If you recall from an earlier review of mine, I mentioned how Barakamon brilliantly portrayed a sense of community. The show does similarly for the sense of family ties and brotherly bonds. Within the family, they all have good chemistry with each other, and every family member has something compelling to love about them. From the responsible eldest to the shy youngest, they were all very enjoyable. Even outside of the family, there were plenty of good characters. For instance, I'll cite Kaise, who I really loved. Out of all the characters within the show, she was probably my favorite. Her bold yet innocent behavior, along with her occasionally humorous actions, and her dynamic with Yasaburo was great. That said, looking at it objectively, arguably the best character in the show is Benton. Every word from her mouth, every action, even her character design and the music that plays when she's around, contributes to this sense of dangerous beauty. She emits an aura of intrigue and mystery, and feels very layered. You never really know what she'll do next, nor why exactly she does anything. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's much more like it's you who doesn't know it, rather than the motivations and reasonings not being there whatsoever. From the lesser side of things, we have the rest of the Bisugawa family. They're malicious, but there's not much explanation as to why. It's just sort of evil for the sake of evilness, and though there were a few reasons given later on, the way we were presented with the information was in passing and didn't really do well to contribute to the believability of it. The same goes for most of the Friday Fellows, whom of which it was never really explained whether or not they understand of the Tanuki's sentience, whether that makes a difference, and if they didn't, why exactly the Tanuki keep this secret. In fact, despite the mostly satisfying ending, unanswered questions were a pretty major problem. A lot of big plot points are left only somewhat or even completely unresolved or unexplained, and there is so much room for a season 2 that despite the massive unlikelihood, I really hope for it. Just enough events are left unresolved to leave you really wanting more and slightly disappointed, but not enough as to significantly hurt my score for it, though it would be higher if these had been fixed. The animation's done by PA Works, the studio behind Nagino Asakara, Hanasakurai Roha, Another, and much more. While this was pretty surprising at first, as it went on, I noticed bits and pieces of PA's style seep through, from the shining eyes to the intricate, beautiful backgrounds. If I could buy high-resolution prints of some of these frames, I certainly would. Because of the highly detailed, visually stunning backgrounds, however, the character art can be a bit jarring as it's very different from the norm, and the simplistic, cartoony character designs can feel a bit out of place in the foreground to the detailed artwork. From a character animation perspective, it's really not the best. There were a couple times where I noticed some frames that just looked a bit off. Not wholly in proportion or something along those lines, and the animation had a very freehand feel to it, often making one frame look ever so slightly off from the next, and most of the time the animation was on the choppier side. Not that it couldn't look nice, because without a doubt there are plenty of scenes and moments where it shines, from the visually impactful scene with Yajiro and the water droplets, to the almost whimsical moments of Ben 10's fight through the air. It certainly excels when it needs to. All of this is assisted by the brilliant soundtrack. We have an upbeat, incredibly fun, and if I say so myself, rather interesting opening song, and a surprisingly emotional ending song. Every song does unbelievably well to accompany its scenes. I dare say the emotional moments wouldn't be near as impactful without this score. Not that the scenes are poor on their own, but it just gives credit to how good it really is. A lot of OSTs nowadays all sound the same, with similar repetitive instruments and themes, yet this one really stands out, making use of a variety of instruments and styles to convey different moods. Much like the Tatami Galaxies, it's simply a really great soundtrack. It may not have quite as much power to stand on its own as some other OSTs do, but in its main task, contributing and adding to the effectiveness of the show and its emotions, it goes above and beyond the Call of Duty, and is yet another thing making this anime as brilliant as it is. Overall, an utterly euphoric experience, with unique characters, witty dialogue, an emotional soundtrack, beautiful art, and a very memorable feel to it. My few complaints were some unresolved plot points and questionable character motivations, but the good far outshines the bad in this situation. I give the Eccentric Family a 9 out of 10, and my recommendation, a must-watch. I don't regret the 4.5 hours I spent on this show in the slightest, and I doubt you will either. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed,